Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. So today I have a topic that I like to call chronic illness narcissism. And yes, I did make this up. This is not something that's like in any, in any kind of textbook or medical journal or anything like that. This is just something that I have observed from my time following other chronically ill people on social media and also meeting other chronically ill people in person at support groups, talking to them on the phone, that kind of thing. And so I know that this is going to rub people the wrong way. It's going to rub some people the wrong way, but I think there are other people that are going to understand what I'm talking about. And, when you become sick, when you start having all these different issues, um, whether you have a diagnosis or not, it's very difficult to understand the people around you um, anymore. And it doesn't matter whether they're sick or whether they're not sick. We're sick and we're kind of lost in our own illness and in our own suffering. And we tend to start kind of separating ourselves from everyone else. And it's very easy to sort of dwell and to believe that you are the only person suffering, or you're the only person suffering at the level that you're suffering. And I think another part of this that sort of complicates this is the fact that people are always telling us to be grateful because there is always someone else that is more sick than we are. And that's true in any, with any illness, whether you have cancer or whether you're diabetic, there's always going to be somebody worse off than you. And that doesn't help because the only suffering that we know and the only suffering we understand is our own suffering. So telling somebody that's sick that it could be worse is not helpful. And I think it works the opposite way. It makes us makes us wallow in our own suffering even more. And so the reason that I kind of came up with this term is because there was this person that I was following on Twitter. Always starts with Twitter, right? And I believe she's undiagnosed. I follow many people who are sick on Twitter, and I believe she's undiagnosed, but she's been searching for a diagnosis. I think her doctors have thrown around lupus and, that kind of thing. But the one thing I noticed is that this girl, she will now and then post, something good that happened, like she got engaged or, whatever. But I've noticed that she has just endless problems. So I think recently she had posted that she had an opioid addiction. Then she posted she was pregnant, which I thought was you know, kind of weird because she's very sick. Then she posted that she had a miscarriage, and most of the things that she posts are things like misfortunes, like these horrible things that happened to her. And I noticed that that's usually when she will post, and she'll do these lengthy posts of, sorry I've been gone, just, all these things have happened. And, it's just this one thing after another after another. And I have noticed with certain people that are chronically ill, and I'm not doubting that she's sick, I'm not doubting that she's suffering, but there are some people that just seem to post one misfortune after the other after the other. And, then of course you get all the people that are coming in like, oh, are you okay? And I hope things are better. And I hope, and they never like respond to these people. It's simply like, this horrible thing happened to me. And I think it's the expectation of, I'm going to get some kind of attention for this. And, while I think that sometimes we do need to vent, I do think that particular brand of narcissism, the fact that you're posting and you're also not really caring, you're getting this feedback, but you're not acknowledging the people. And that's the one thing that I've noticed, because there are people that will post something and they'll say, thank you so much. I appreciate, the kind words and that kind of thing. But there are people that don't. They won't respond to it. It's simply, I think, almost like Like, I know I'm going to get this feedback, and that's what I need. And once I get it, I'm satisfied. And so I believe that that tends to be on the narcissistic end, because that is what narcissism is. Narcissism is a one-way street. It feeds the narcissist, and the narcissist gives absolutely nothing back. If you know anything about narcissism, that's one of the biggest things of narcissism, is that they don't give back. They are, I believe, there's the term emotional vampires. And these types of people with chronic health issues tend to be emotional vampires, in that same sense. It's like a one-way street. I do have a lot of people that I follow on social media where we're kind of back and forth. We kind of share our issues, and we kind of, exchange notes, things like that. And it's a very, it's kind of like a very back, it's a kind of, it's more of an even exchange, as opposed to someone who is just taking, and they could care less, about the people that are concerned. And so, I do think that this is very unhealthy. It's very unhealthy. And I think it's very common with people with chronic illnesses that we tend to just forget that there are other people out there that are worried about us, and that we're scaring with our, with the things that we say. But also that we can't forget our own humanity and the humanity of others. That, we are scaring, we can sometimes scare other people, and we don't want it to be that all the time. We don't want to be alarming all the time. And we do need to acknowledge that other people still feel, and other people have fears, and other people are also very sick. It's not just about us. I remember I was at these are a few examples of what I'm talking about, because it's difficult for me to sort of define it. It's more people that I've met. I went to a support group, and this is a big reason why I don't go to these support groups anymore. I went to a Lyme disease support group, and there was a girl and her mother there, and the girl, she was relatively young, and she was just crying and crying and crying. She was inconsolable. She was crying and like angry at the same time. And her mother was trying to comfort her, and I think other people were trying to comfort her, and she just would not be comforted. She was just, angry and crying, and just, you could see it on her face that she was just like, no one is going to console me. Like, I am inconsolable right now. But I could see her mother's desperation to console her. And her mother was just rubbing her back and trying so hard to just be there for her and comfort her. And it seemed like the more that her mother comforted her, the less she was going to be comforted. And so you see the dynamic. And it's the same dynamic that I saw with this girl on Twitter, where I'm in a crisis and I'm going to be very loud and very obvious about the crisis that I'm having. And when people acknowledge it, I'm not going to acknowledge them. I'm not going to allow people to comfort me. And not only that, I'm going to come back with the next big crisis, in a couple days or whenever. I'm not going to come and tell you that when things are good, but I'm going to definitely come back and let you know that things are worse. And so I've noticed that, the feedback loop, it takes two to tango with this, narcissism thing. It takes one person to be the narcissist and the other person to feed it. And in this case, the girl's mother was feeding it. And, as long as her mother was feeding it, she was going to continue to be inconsolable, right? Because you're going to have to keep up, like I said, it's an addiction. You're going to have to keep up the, this, I don't want to say it's an act, because she is suffering, she is sick. But if you want to continue to get that attention, you have to continue to do something to elicit that reaction. And so I could see that, that dynamic between her and her mom. And the bad thing here, and I'm not saying that her mom should ignore her, but, I'm on the opposite end of that. I live with people, and my family generally ignores whatever's going on with me. There's no comfort. There's no acknowledgement of my illness. So I do know the opposite end of that. And I know how harsh and how damaging that can be as well. But I think there has to be a happy medium. And I think at a certain point, when a person cannot be consoled, you do kind of have to let a person self-soothe, which is something that I've sort of learned to do because I have to. And the negative things of this type of narcissism is that you alienate everybody else. So even if there is that one person that feeds it, you're gonna keep going back to that one person and put the burden on that one person that's feeding, or the internet, because the internet is a place where you can find a lot of these people that are gonna feed your, the attention that you need. But as far as friends and family, there are inevitably going to be people that are going to distance themselves from you and not want to have anything to do with you. And it's not because you're sick, it's because it's draining. It is emotionally draining. And I myself have had to distance myself from other sick people because I found it emotionally draining. There are some people, like I said, there's some people where we just kind of go back and forth and we have sort of that mutual understanding that we're both sick and we're both kind of exchanging notes. But there are other people that don't get that. And that's where the narcissism comes in, that even between two people who are ill, they believe themselves to be the sicker of the two. And I've been guilty of that as well. Like there's people that I talk to where I think to myself, how are you living your life? And I'm stuck at home, like I'm sicker than you. That's basically what that tells me. But I have to kind of bring myself back down to reality and remember the fact that there are some very sick people who are still going about their lives. There are some very sick people who are still working, a full-time job, and raising children and supporting their families. And that doesn't mean that they're not suffering even more than I am. And so I constantly have to bring myself back down and say, look, this person is suffering. Just because you can't relate to it in this moment doesn't mean that they're not. And I'm fortunate that I can sort of bring myself back, but there are people that can't. And there are people that just, like I said, it's this addiction of constantly going back to, who can I get attention from? Where can I go get attention? Social media is a big place where people go to get attention. I mean, I feel like that's the primary purpose of social media nowadays. It also can lead to a certain level of harassment, and I have seen this. For example, the girl on Twitter, she's complained about being harassed, and she's complained about people telling her that she's faking her illness. And it does come across like that. It does come across as she's kind of making things up because it's just one crisis after another after another. So you open yourself to negative attention and harassment by looking for this feedback loop. Eventually you're going to find someone that's not going to give it to you. You're going to find the opposite, someone that's going to tell you that you're lying. And the even bigger drawback from this is that it hurts all of us as a group, as chronically ill people. It hurts all of us because you have probably that minority of people that are constantly airing their grievances in public and constantly complaining about what's going on with their bodies or what's going on in their lives. And so it labels us, because the rest of us, there are a lot of chronically ill people that are very quiet, that don't really talk about their illness, that don't really want to get into it. I mean, we do talk about it. We talk about it with our doctors or maybe with a close family member or friend. But a lot of us do stay quiet because we know the consequences of just constantly going at it and talking about it. And these people that are loud about it, they tend to affect all of us negatively. We all are going to get labeled as fakers or liars because of the dramatic few. And so, and like I said, that small group of people, they don't really know. They're not really, I don't think they are aware of how they're coming across, and they're not aware of who they're hurting. And that is a part of a narcissism. It's a lack of self-awareness. And it is very damaging to the rest of us, to those of us who are a lot quieter about our illnesses, who tend to be more private, the few times that we do speak up, we are going to get lumped in with these other people and labeled um, as hypochondriacs, as liars, as attention seeking. And I think that's why I kind of wanted to speak out about this, because it is sort of a pet peeve of mine when I see these people so loudly talking about their problems, and it's almost like they never really talk about anything else but a problem. You know, when they're having a bad flare, when they're having a medical crisis, when they have to be hospitalized. Um, and a lot of times also some of these things are unfounded. For example, this girl that was talking about her opioid addiction and then that she had a miscarriage, she had never, I think she had followed up later on saying that she had never really gone to the doctors to verify that she was actually pregnant in the first place, which kind of made me wonder, like, well, how did you know you were pregnant? How did you know that you had a miscarriage? Like, are you just assumed that you were pregnant, or maybe based on just your own observation, you were like, well, I'm probably pregnant, and now I probably had a miscarriage. So it's all of those things that, again, make people question that person, but then it makes them question chronically ill people as a whole. And so, I think the only thing I would like to ask of all chronically ill people is to kind of check your own self before somebody else does, because like I said, inevitably somebody will tell you something. But ask yourself if your life is just one crisis after the other, if the only times that you reach out to people or acknowledge other people are when you're having a flare, or when you're very very sick and you need some kind of attention. And yes, we all need attention. I think we all want someone to soothe us. We get tired of soothing ourselves, but it can become an addictive behavior. And if you're not aware of it, especially, that is a that is a key trait of narcissism, is that you're not aware of that. And like I said, it takes practice, and I've had to be more conscious of the way I come across, especially when I talk about my medical issues, even with doctors. I've had to be extra conscious of the way that I speak about my illness and my pain, in order to not raise those red flags, because it is, and I'm not saying that any of these people are faking it, but it does come across as disingenuous when people are just constantly, um, relentlessly complaining about a problem that they're having, and they very rarely have anything else good to share. So that's my topic for today. I know it's not it's a welcome topic with a lot of people, but it's something to think about, and it's something, like I said, that will contribute to the greater good if we're all extra conscious of how we speak about our own medical issues. So I hope this is enlightening. I hope I will come back with another video soon. I am trying to make them whenever I get a chance. But this is what I have for today, and I hope you guys get something out of it. So I'll see you guys again soon.